You're over here crapping on younger millennials. You're the one that made the platform. We beneficiaries of the platform. We all come from
Uh-huh.
humble roots. And my
Yes, and my humble roots paid off my student
okay,
loans.
and my
So
humble roots is gonna wait for Biden and his government to fix that.
the conversations that we have, I think, are conversations women like us have every day with their mothers, with their sisters, with their friends, and with their aunties. And so we wanted to have it here and create a forum and safe place to talk about those things and to have these authentic and unapologetic conversations. Hi, I'm Satta, one of your co-hosts of the Sis Please podcast.
And I'm Jaretta. I'm the other half of Sis Please. Welcome everyone to our first episode.
Welcome to our premiere episode. Yes. So how do you feel, Jaretta?
I'm feeling good. It's been a long time coming, a lot of hard work, but I'm just so glad that we're finally here and just sharing our experience with everyone who's tuning in. How about you?
I'm excited, nervous. I think it's going to be awesome though.
That's great. So we wanted to take the first episode to introduce ourselves, but also just kind of talk about the premise of the podcast and what you can expect from us for the next couple of weeks. Just to kick us off, we basically had this idea about Sis Please for about a year or so, right, Sada?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I think a lot of it just stemmed from our own experiences. I'm the younger sister out of the two, and we would often have really great but also polarized conversations on the phone to the point where we're like, this would make some interesting content for a podcast. So that's how that came about.
Yeah, and I'm the older sister, so we came up with this podcast, as Jaretta said, because we have really interesting, enlightening conversations, and our viewpoints are often different on certain topics, whether it be social issues or politics. Even though we're sisters and we're Black millennial women, we don't always agree on everything. And I think that just speaks to the diversity within our community too. But we thought a podcast would be a great place to explore those differences. And I think it's because the conversations that we have, I think, are conversations women like us have every day with their mothers, with their sisters, with their friends, and with their aunties. And so we wanted to have it here and create a forum and safe place to talk about those things and to have these authentic and unapologetic conversations.
Unapologetic for sure.
Exactly. So we can go into a little bit about who we are as sisters, why you should take your precious time to listen to our podcast. Jaretta's the younger sis. I'm the big sis. We're nearly 8 years apart. We're first generation American kids, the children of immigrants. Our parents are from Liberia, West Africa. So growing up, we really existed in two worlds. Outside the house, you were in America, but once you stepped foot in the house, it was clear you were in an African household. So being Liberian American, you sort of had this hyphenated, bifurcated experience. I'm sure a lot of people who are listening can relate to that. Inside the household, there are certain rules and codes that you abide by, like
Do as you're
you do
told.
not speak do as you're told. You do not speak back to your elders, because in African culture there's such reverence for elders, and it's very, very, very focused on education in school. It's like school.
Education can't
Study a book.
Education can't be taken away from you. You got to get a good future.
Yeah, exactly. So, but when you're outside the house, you're more like a typical American kid. You have more freedom to explore and do things and act in ways that maybe you wouldn't necessarily inside the house, or else, you might get whooped. You might get your ass whooped
Get
if
that
you
belt,
did these
get
things.
that switch.
So again, we lived in two different worlds, but I think the culture inside our home was very reflective of the larger community we grew up in. We grew up in Providence, Rhode Island, which has a very significant Liberian population for a city and state. I think at one time Rhode Island had the largest population of Liberians per capita of any state in the United States. So we grew up with this extended family of play aunties and uncles, and real aunties and uncles, because our mom is one of like 24 siblings.
She has so many,
count.
yes, so many siblings. It's like a UPS. Like, we'll go into that a little bit later in future episodes, but
yeah, so that extended community could be good and bad. You have all these people looking out for you, but then you also have all these people looking at you, and they have a watchful eye on you all the time. And I remember one story that really stands out to me about this is when I was in the 8th grade and I was walking home from school, and right before I got to the house, this boy, he was cute from what I remember, stopped and wanted to talk to me. So I was chatting with him, and one of our play uncles happened to be driving by at the same time and like saw me speaking to this boy. So then when my mom came home, he took it upon himself to talk to her and tell her, "Oh, I saw Sada outside talking to this boy." And I was like, "Damn, mind your business, Uncle Ernest. Like, what does this have to
Yeah.
do with you?" And luckily, our mom took it as stride because that happened to be the day she also closed on our new house. So she was in a good ass
Oh, I
mood.
didn't know that.
He he caught her on a good day. So I didn't get in trouble, thankfully, but that just speaks to how when you grow up in this larger African community, you have people who treat you as their child. Everyone's child is shared with the community. So you have people looking out for you, but you also have people in your business all the time. And I know, Jaretta, you've experienced the same thing.
Always in your business. But yeah, no, this is a story. I don't remember it because I was 5, but mommy always has some stories about me, especially with our grandfather who was the patriarch. I remember one time she was telling me that I was 5 years old. Me and my grandfather were watching TV, and I proceed to go upstairs or go to the bathroom or something like that. When I come back, I see that the channel has changed, and he had his show. Again, I guess like when my mom told me, and I guess I don't know, Sada, if you could vouch, I was a very sassy child, still am in a lot of
Yes.
ways.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So instead of me just keeping quiet, I was like, Opa, Grandpa, you changed the channel. That's not nice. I'm going to change it back. And he was so
Oh, Lord.
pissed that he like told our mom, like, by the end of the month you're gonna find me a new house. Now how dare this child speak to me like she is a young child and I'm a man? So how
I'm a
dare she,
grown ass
yeah,
man.
how dare she usurp my authority like that? So I think that's also just something that's really symbolic, emblematic of, I think, not even just like Liberian Americans, but I feel like a lot of first gen people that are listening to this podcast as well, just like having, especially like the patriarch of the family being respected and revered no matter what the cost.
Yeah. And you were trying to teach grandpa how to share, and he was like, "This is not a democracy. This is a dictatorship. I'm not sharing the TV with this 5-year-old."
He's like, shut up. Yeah, no, but I mean, that's also crazy too, because like you learn, and my background is in education and psychology and education policy, but at the age of 5, you're learning about all these things. Sharing is caring and all that other stuff. So he was just like, not in this household, not in
Not
this
in this
house.
African
You're
house,
gonna sit
not in
your
this
ass
Africa,
down
not in
and
Africa.
yeah, go sit your ass down and be quiet. So
So going back to some of the ways we're different. So, Jaretta, do you just want to talk a little bit again about your background, where you are in life, some of your unique views, and then I'll talk about how mine kind of diverge from that a little bit.
yeah, for sure. Like I said, I'm the younger sister. I'm 30, gonna be 31 in a couple of months. I'm not married. I'm just like, I feel like I'm the sister that's kind of figuring it all out, and that's okay. So, navigating my career, just changed my job about 7 months ago, navigating dating and adulting. I currently
Hmm.
work in the nonprofit space. I'm also someone that is, as Sada likes to call me, a social justice warrior. I know that can often be co opted, but I would say like I'm
Hmm.
more socially and fiscally liberal. And I'm
Hmm.
also, aside from having those identities, I would also say that I'm very Christian. We were raised Pentecostal, but
Hmm.
am very serious and active about my faith.
Yeah. And I think that'll be interesting to explore the fact that you're very socially liberal and also very religious, because sometimes those things aren't aligned for certain people.
Mm.
But to contrast that, I am the older sister of a so called quote unquote geriatric millennial. I don't know who came up with that term, but we need to retire it. But so I'm 38. I'm married. I've been married 9 years, about 9 years now. I'm a mother. I have one kid. I have a son. I'm a former journalist who now has her own marketing consultancy for the past 9 years as well. So I've been self employed for a while. And in contrast to my sister's views, I would say I am also socially liberal, but I'm more fiscally moderate and even conservative on certain issues, depending on the issues like we've talked about, student loan debt relief and how I was not pro that.
Yeah,
My views have sort of become more ambivalent. Well, Jaretta was like gung ho,
you
make
make
it
the
rain,
money.
pay
Yes.
off these student loans. And I'm like, no, I don't think so. I'm paying taxes. I paid off my student loans. I don't want to pay off anyone else's. But anyway,
How
and
quickly
then,
people forget. You know what I mean? We all come from
uh-huh.
humble roots. And my
Yes. And my humble roots paid off my student
okay,
loans.
and my
So,
humble roots is gonna wait for Biden and his government to fix that. And I know some people are like, oh, don't rely on the government, but I think again because of my educational background, it takes a while to pay off some student loans, and then also too, you see during the pandemic, people were scamming PPE loans. So I'm just like, well, so this is our stimulus, our extra stimulus, because they tell us to go to school, and now we in debt. We can't purchase homes, but that's another story for another day.
mm-hmm. Yep. And then also, whereas my sister is very religious, I'm not. I would consider myself more spiritual. I don't really believe in organized religion. I stopped going to church really actively at 16, which is like a bone of contention because especially within the Liberian community, I would say most people are Christian. So there's always a push and pull about that. But I just feel like I'm religiously open minded. I'm still exploring even at 38. And I feel like, I have a right to do that and not to ascribe to one particular belief system. So I think, in a future episode, we're definitely going to explore that. And I think it'll be interesting to hear our unique viewpoints on navigating religion and spirituality. But I thought it would be fun to do a little kind of like round robin style game with us where we each talk about the differences between our generations and things we like and things we don't like or we don't understand. And when I say the word generation, I'm using that loosely because obviously we're only 8 years apart. So a generation is, 30 or 40 years, but we're mostly talking about the intra-generational differences. But the millennial age range is so wide. Like there's a big difference from a millennial who's in their late 20s and early 30s compared to a millennial who is in their late 30s, early 40s. There's such a huge range. So I'll kick things off. So one thing I love about younger millennials is your brazenness, your willingness to explore and to take risks and to really create things on your own. Like you see a lot of these social media stars and athletes, and they're younger people who are doing it for themselves, and I really admire that. And I would say, like, if there was a motto for your generation, it would be I'm willing to fuck around and find out,
That's
but in
right.
a good way. You're willing to see what happens. So I admire that and I respect that. Conversely, the thing I do not understand about your generation is that it feels like everything is filtered through the lens of social media. Like, people flossing for the gram or being Instagram official, or, it feels like there's a lot of concern about the outside perspective. And that affects like almost every facet of your life as a young millennial. That's what it feels like. There's too much of living life online and not living your real life. So I would say that social media filter on within young millennials, I feel like is something I just don't get. And how about you?
That's fair. That's fair. Um, I think also, like you said, with us being 8 years apart, like you were my cultural marker in a lot of ways. So a lot of the things that you would watch, I would watch, and I would enjoy. So I remember me being 10 years old and going to Boston University where my sister went to school. I think, yeah, 10 years old at the time. Like, oh my God, this is so freaking cool. My sister's going to college. Like this is so great. But kind of going back to one thing that I appreciate about older millennials is just like your ability to rise in the midst of hurdles and like persevere through those challenges. So like I said, Sada, you being 8 years older, I remember us, having a gateway computer at home. I know you probably don't remember that. And
I
playing.
remember my Lenovo. Don't
No, we
shade me.
had
I
a
don't know why you
gateway.
put.
We had a gateway
Yeah, but
computer.
Lenovo and Gateway, I think were owned by the same
I don't
company.
know,
But
but I remember
yeah,
that.
you aging me
I'm not
a
even
lot
trying to.
now. But
I'm
go
not
ahead.
even trying to play you, but
Yeah, trying to roast.
yeah, I'm
Okay.
not trying to roast, but no, I remember just certain things that define the millennial generation. So, like 9/11, for example, I think I was like in third, fourth grade, and you were in
Mm,
high school. So, you had a different perspective of that. I remember Obama getting elected for the first time when I was like almost a junior or senior in high school, one of the
mhm.
two. And you, I think had just graduated college, but also you just kind of dealing with a lot of challenges as well, like during like '06, '08, and beyond, like just the economic downturn and just how
Getting laid
yeah,
off.
and just a
Yeah.
lot of people just having older millennials having to just kind of pick up their life and find a new way and find avenues. So that's something that I really admire about the older generation. I think similar to you, I think there's just a lot of flack that people, younger millennials and Gen Z, because I feel like, I was born in the early
It's kind of
90s.
converged. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like
Hmm.
I'm not necessarily Gen Z, but I can relate. So I feel like I'm kind of like in the middle. But anyway, I feel like a lot of older millennials give a lot of younger millennials a lot of shit. Like we're
Oh my
entitled.
goodness.
We don't know any.
Participation trophies, all of that.
We
Yeah.
don't know any better. We're all about the Instagrams. But I'm like, listen, Mark Zuckerberg, the founder of Reddit, these are folks your age who built these big social media pioneers and make billions, millions of dollars to this day.
So again, that's something you like about older millennials then, right?
But you're over here crapping on younger millennials. You're the one that made the platform. We beneficiaries of the platform. We
Okay.
beneficiary.
Fair enough. That's a good point. You got me there.
Yeah, so I think also too just realizing that you also were young once and that the world is changing.
Wait, hold on now. We're still young. What are you talking
I
about?
know,
You
but
also were
I
young
do.
once, as if we're like 60. I don't post on social media. Like
Sada,
we're still young. To correct, we're still
I know
young.
I'm young.
Proceed.
I know I'm young. I know I'm young.
Okay, proceed.
But
Proceed.
what I'm saying is that sometimes I do find older millennials kind of have this air of, I wouldn't say arrogance, but just like,
Superiority.
yeah, just like y'all don't know what y'all doing. And it's just like, no, we're figuring it out. I always compare it to the NBA because I love the NBA, like love the Celtics, go Celtics. But
Hmm.
especially inside the NBA with like Chuck and Shaq and Kenny, and there's just always a lot of talk that they have of who's the greatest. And back in my day when I was playing, these players are
Jordan.
are soft and all that. And like I think similarly, it's just good to
Hmm.
see generations grow and evolve. So I think it's just really important for us to have that open mindset, because who knows, like my lovely nephew, whenever he turns 18, I'll just be shocked to see how the world has changed. But just having an open mind, and just having that
But like
you
Charles Barkley, I agree. People are soft nowadays. That applies to the NBA, to younger millennials. You guys are soft.
how's
Sorry.
how we soft.
It's just we can get into that. That's a conversation for another day. But it's you guys be in your feelings with a lot of stuff, particularly with what people be posting on social media. Like you see something, or you unfollow this person, or this person left a comment. You guys are all in your feelings for the rest of the day, if not the week. But anywho,
We're gonna have an interesting episode about social media, because me and my sister have actually gotten to arguments about social.
about Jaretta's social media use. Yes.
I've evolved since then. I should get a participation trophy for that. So
Okay. Yeah. Well, I mean that's right on cue because younger millennials they love the participation trophies.
that
Anyway,
was
I'm teasing.
yeah.
I'm teasing. I'm teasing. I'm about there. Your whole generation is about to come after me with pitchforks and knives after they listen to this, and that's what it is. So to wrap up, I guess, how do you feel about going into this podcast journey as sisters?
I'm really excited. I don't know about you, sis, but I think especially these past couple of months, would you say that we have gotten a little bit closer?
Yeah, I feel like we were close as siblings, but I think we've become close as friends, and dare I say, maybe even besties, or maybe, or maybe,
I mean, I'm not trying to, we're getting there. We're getting
we're getting there.
older.
Yeah, but I think too, just because of the age gap, when we were younger, it was different, but now that we're sort of closer in age, I feel like we're getting closer as individuals, because it's different when you both are in your 30s compared to if one person's 8 years old and the other person's 16.
Oh
It's not like
yeah,
we're really hanging out.
I
Yeah.
remember stealing Sada's clothes, always with her friends. Like, when her friends would come to the house after school, I just wanted to be just like her. So no, I agree. I think
Oh,
as we've gotten older, our relationship has gotten better because like I think we have the range to talk about topics that I wouldn't say that we did um when I was 8 and you were
younger.
16.
And our lives have both changed. Like, if we would have did this podcast like 10 years ago, podcasts were around then, but like I wasn't married. I was dating my now husband, but I wasn't married. I wasn't a mother. I wasn't a homeowner. I wasn't self-employed. I wasn't going through all these life experiences now that I have that have made me, more seasoned and have a different, and I feel more nuanced perspective on things. And I feel like it's the same for you probably.
Yeah, no, most definitely. And then kind of going back to your original question, I think it all ties in, right? Like, I remember when we first decided, like, all right, we have a message out here, like, this would really be great just in terms of the culture, because we also wanted to I don't see a lot of podcasts that just talk about like the first generation perspective, but I think just hearing your heart about, hey, I like what I do for a career, but I feel like my creativity is a little bit stagnant. And I felt like I was in the same boat. Like I always wanted to do some type of social media venture. And I think doing it with my sister, as well as just having like really engaging and enlightening topics, um, is just going to help us get out of our shell. And I hope that everybody that's listening can like just stick along for the ride and see the maturation and the growth.
Yeah. And I think it's always tricky to work with your family in any capacity, but I'm excited and I'm hopeful, hopefully come Thanksgiving, we're still sitting, at the table next to each other talking. We're not like, you bitch, you said this on the podcast. How dare
you
you?
know you know mommy
Like,
wouldn't be having that. She'll be like, now y'all
yeah,
be acting civil now. My daughters,
exactly.
they
Yeah. And speaking of mom, should we send her the podcast episodes, or because she ain't gonna know how to go on Apple
she
and
don't know how
Spotify
to
to
do
find these.
that. It be
So should we send these to her, or should we just
select
like
episodes, select episodes, because I can just I'm also just a little afraid of the things that I will share, because I think, you know, you just want to keep the mother daughter relationship, and I just don't want to say something that she's just like, oh, this what you've been doing. But I'm like, I'm grown, you know what I'm saying?
exactly, you are grown.
So yeah, awesome.
Yeah. So we'll see. So that's gonna be our strategy. We will send her select episodes and then let the chips fall where they may.
Facts. And we love mom. Mom, this is not to talk about you. We love you. She always thinks we're gossiping about her.
Yeah, she thinks the sole purpose of this podcast is to talk about her. It's like,
We got other things to
woman,
do.
please.
Yeah.
Exactly. We have a whole bunch of things to talk about that don't always involve you. But I think this podcast too is an homage to her, because she made us the women we are, and in some ways gave us the courage to do this and to try new things. So, mom, you can relax. This is not to talk about you. This is to talk to each other and to other women like us. So we're excited to do that.